Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we are back today with Katie Kieffer. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you for having me. I help people navigate through becoming sovereign for themselves, about being your sovereign self, being in your full autonomy, your full authority for yourself. And it is a journey.
Yes, it is. And it's actually something that we'll probably touch on a little bit today, because we were going to talk about the difference or the distinction between soul energy and body energy. Because we had talked in our last conversation, you brought something up and I said, yeah, we'll get back to that. And we didn't really get back to it. That soul knows stuff that the body is still learning. And, sovereignty is really that state where we're kind of embodying the wholeness of what the soul has for us that we can in a body. The idea that we are in our full autonomy and authority and harmony with our soul self. But you had talked about that distinction between what the soul knows and what the body experiences. And so I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more about that. And we're going to dive a little deeper into it.
Okay. My understanding of this really is that the soul has memory of everything. The soul is already whole and complete, unless there's been something that's happened that's really caused a problem at the soul level, which would be seriously traumatic. But the soul is still whole and complete, even though it can carry all of these memories that might not be so pleasant. The body, on the other hand, it's my understanding that the soul kind of designs and initiates the creation of the body. The body does not have all of that memory of the soul. The body has the memory of the planet we're on. And so the body has a knowing of how to be on the planet in its most primitive form. Whereas the soul understands a much larger picture, understands that, how it is here on Earth may not be how it is on another type of planet and so that we've been on. And so the soul has this like a big overview that the body just does not have. The body has like this tiny little view. The body's perspective can be like looking through the keyhole, but thinking you're seeing the whole room. Whereas the soul actually sees the whole room.
Okay, and I like that. It does. And my experience of this is a little bit different. And I think everybody's entitled to their own sovereignty on how they experience things, because we all have an understanding that's inherent to us, and we all have an understanding that is unique, and no two peoples are or really should be alike. So if your understanding is different, don't make yourself right or wrong or good or bad. That's harken back to our last conversation if you want to know more about that.
But, yeah. So suspend the judgment.
Yeah. So my experience of this is like the soul is in timelessness. The soul is, and we in our bodies are in time, but the soul is in timelessness, and the soul, to me, is like hungry for experiences. The soul, it's the adventure of expression that the soul really loves. And in a human form, like when you're in a human form, you're connected with your soul, you're part of your soul, you're an expression of your soul. And when I have really been in my soul energy, like when I've been just feeling very full with that, it is an absolute adventure. It's like every single moment is a most amazing unfolding adventure of being alive and experiencing whatever I happen to be experiencing. And I'm like, woohoo, like this is this is life. This is living. This is the adventure. This is the fun. And the time when I have the most fun with this, like when I'm feeling the most adventure, when I'm tapped into this energy, which I'm into more and more of the time, is that the more that I'm in the unknown, in like the unfolding of something that's probably that I can't tell how it's going to turn out, the more exciting it is. And it's flipped on its head from what it is as a human experience, because from the human experience, when you're in the unknown and you don't know how something is going to turn out, oftentimes, it's terrifying, and it runs through the body in biochemistry of fear. But when I'm in kind of that soul side, when I'm tapped open and into that, I will still have a lot of biochemistry running through my body. Like, it's not just like a neutral zone. Like, part of the joy of it is that there's a lot going on, but it's exciting. It is new. It is fresh. It is open. And the excitement is really in the curiosity and the unfolding and the listening to what it is that I'm being asked to do in the moment. And the constant choice whether to be in that, which is like that state of grace where I'm being asked to do something that is not necessarily fun, but it's powerful. And to know that I am in that, or the grace of that power, in that moment, or to be able to say, yeah, no, not going to do that. But I know, like, difficult conversations with people are a great thing, because I'm a verbal person. So to be in a conversation, like when you are with somebody who is dying, or with somebody who is related to somebody who is dying, or somebody who's in deep pain, to be in that place where, you're in the unfolding moment of that, and you're bringing through the power and the energy of allowing that space for that person without going into the rightness and wrongness, or the diminished possibility of that moment, because that's what we want to do as humans, is to kind of tap down that power, is super exhilarating. Even though, like, I don't know the words that are going to be coming out of my mouth, like, I have to be in that level of present moment to just allow it all to flow through. And parts of me, when I've been in those situations, the human part of me is sitting back going, how are you saying that to that person, and they are not like slapping your face? And to be fully in the moment, not trying to hide anything, not tamping down my feelings, but being so present in that's allowing that to move through. I mean, that's, to me, the power of being in that, and of not necessarily being in wonderful situations with it, but allowing that to move through you as that state of presence. To me, that's the freshness of being in this state. And one reason I'm so excited about the world as it is now, and as it's recreating, because it's inviting everybody to kind of come more into this place of being very present as things are unfolding, and choosing whether you're going to respond from the human nervous system, or you're going to drop deeper into that place of like, well, I'm in the unfolding, and I'm going to be in it. And I'm finding more and more people who are not even spiritual people who are dropping into that place, and like, I'm riding the wave. I don't know what it is, but I'm riding the wave, and I'm fully present, and I'm here. It's amazing.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and Alison Armstrong calls that human spirit. So coming at, especially with a lot of what we've been dealing with in the world lately, the more we can come at this from the perspective of human spirit, which to me is also soul level, it's very, very different, because then we're not in this reactionary fight or flight freeze.
Not in our heads. We're not thinking it through.
Right.
We're not trying to come up with solutions. We're not trying to make it okay.
Right, but we're not demonizing it either.
No. That's what I mean. We're not trying to we're not putting judgments of rightness or wrongness or goodness or badness, which is, when I'm in my soul energy, is the easiest place not to be in that.
Absolutely.
Because you can see and experience that all of that has context and perspective and value.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And the idea that when we are in soul self. Because I get that experience too. When I'm really fully in my soul self, there's like no judgment.
Mm-mm,
I mean, I
nothing.
can see people behaving in ways that I'm like, for my human self, I would have been completely triggered and feeling like I have to go do something about it. Whereas from soul self, I can look at it and be like oddly fascinated. And because
Well,
there's
this.
no judgment. And it's just a matter of, I wonder why they're behaving that way. And then there's more room. For me, there's more room for compassion.
Well, it kind of goes back to our last conversation on that place of wholeness. Like when you're in that soul self and
Hmm.
that you're in that place of wholeness where you can experience anything
Yeah.
and everything, and nothing has a value judgment in the way that we have it for our human value judgment. And one of the things that's actually quite thrilling for my body anyway is when I'm in that place of wholeness and soul self and non-judgment, and I look at somebody who is deep in something that I would ordinarily judge, and I just kind of like turn on that energy flow to experience a little bit of what that energy is like. I can feel the exhilaration of that experience without having to enter into all of the story and the drama and the rightness or wrongness and the aspects of that, of things that I wouldn't do, as a human. There are things that I would not necessarily do, but I can see why people would choose that experience because the energy of it can be exhilarating. And
Hmm.
so I can experience that without having to make it wrong and without having to act on it. I can just simply have a little bit of a
Right.
zingy experience of it. I think that's why we watch movies and stuff. And nobody watches a movie of everything happening and going right? I mean, what's the point? We watch movies and TV shows and things to vicariously experience things through a story where we don't have to take them on as our own story.
Hmm.
And so it's in that way, similarly, that, we can be in that place of wholeness, experience, what it is to be a bank robber, experience the feelings and the sensations and the energies and the awareness of things without having to take them on as our own personal story.
That's a really good way to put it. Because I hadn't thought about it. Because as soon as you were like, you can experience what it's like to be a bank robber, I'm like, usually I'm feeling the other person because and that's just been, I think, because of how the conditioning. So the perspective we pick up in a movie is going to probably initially be based on what our conditioning is. So that will
Well,
be the human body reacting first, unless
and
you're already in that soul self
and
through
I
the
used to do
entirety of
that
that.
because I would go where what I identified with. And I would always
Right,
identify with the victim or the place that I was following the
right,
rules, and somebody shows up to the bank with a gun, and oh my
right.
gosh, then I'm in terror. And then I started, this was years ago, I tapped into some idea that I called capacity. And it was really about the capacity of expanding the kinds of energy I was willing to experience. And from that place, I began to run different kinds of energies through my body. So I began to, watch television or listen to stories or watch the news or something and allow not the energy that I was used to, the kind of the fear-based reactionary energy that was familiar to me, but like, what was it like to be on the other side of that energy? And to begin to be able to experience all the things that are happening there and however it came through my experience, and understand, the bank robber scene from the exhilaration of being the bank robber, to begin to widen and expand what I was really able to experience, and the vibrations, the frequencies, and the intensity of experience I was able to experience in my body. And that really helped me to be able to open up to the idea of life as adventure,
Hmm.
and to the adventure, like that soul level adventure, because I was able to experience a much broader range of things. Because, what my soul considers an adventure, my body thinks we shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's a rule there somewhere. But from the soul level, it was like, no, we're having a good time. This is great. The energy is running. It's all going to be fine. We're all infinite beings. Nobody ever dies. So if you slip, oh well, we'll do it again next time. And it's like this fierceness, and not in a bad way, but this fierceness of being alive, that when I'm in that soul energy, when I first started running these energies, it was almost too much for my body to take. Like I could do a little bit and then I had to stop. I could do a little bit more and then I had to stop. But now I can actually run a lot. And as I go into higher and higher doses of this, really, and run different kinds of things, like we were talking about, thriving and whole new energy spectrums that are coming in now. I've got a much higher tolerance for it, but every once in a while I still get blown out of the water with like some kind of new energy that just kind of blows all my circuits. Like, okay, I'm just going to sit in my chair all day and drink tea and acclimate to this.
I bet. It's amazing that you do that. It really is that you just, I hadn't really considered to do it that way, like to be in soul self. It's like, we watch the movies, and there's so often that when you get enough of this story of the quote unquote bad guy, I'm like, I get it. There's room for compassion, or there's at minimum understanding. I mean, if you're dealing with someone who's a full-on psychopath, just understanding that they are wired in such a way that they're missing connections most of us have. There's an understanding there. It doesn't make what they do okay when it's terrible and hurtful to others, but there's an understanding there. But I hadn't considered like being in soul self and exploring energies in the way that you've done. That's really interesting. And I don't know that I want to. It's like you found a way to expedite the experience process. And because the soul is only seeing it as experience. It's our human selves that experience the good, the bad, and the kind of where the judgment piece is. But the truth of the matter is that from the human experience self, when you stub your toe, it physically hurts, at least for a moment. But the soul is just like, oh, it's just an experience. And so when we can bring that even into the body and go, yeah, that sucked, but it's just an experience.
When I was in India, I was at a ashram, and it was Amma something or other, who people think, oh my gosh, you met her, and I can't even remember her name except for Amma, so I feel bad about that. But anyway, she was an extraordinary woman. But one of the things that she did is she needed like all this dental work and like root canal type of stuff and things, and the dentist was like, okay, we need to put you under Novocaine or whatever, and she's like, oh, it's just pain, it's not it's no big deal. So just being able to experience that kind of what most of us consider pain, and like, give me the Novocaine. I don't care.
Yes.
I'll detox off the Novocaine. I don't want you operating on my teeth without something like that. But she was just like, yeah, it's just sensation. It's not a problem. So to be able to step into that level of ability to run what most of us would consider highly painful stuff as simply sensation is beyond me, but it is, I know it's something that people can do.
Wow.
But it's, and I've been doing this since I was a kid. Like, to me, this was really how I don't know, juiced up my nervous system, or juiced up my body system, or made life more interesting.
But yeah, and you do have a very different perspective than I would be used to seeing. And, I love it because it helps us expand. So thank you for coming here and for being here and in our dimensionality in our universe, however this works, because really, sharing these concepts really can help us see that, there's still yet another path to go explore. We don't have to be locked in to where we are or where we've been. It helps to like blow the doors off of limitation. And even though it's like some things might feel a little big to get a grasp on, like, I don't think there's some of the energies there's some energies I probably just don't want to play with. And that we each get to do that from discernment, but then it's still important to go, well, is that from a place of fear, or is it from a place of judgment, or where is that from? That's a good
Yeah.
question.
And it's definitely something, I mean, this isn't something I just started. Like, this was something that I haven't in practice my whole life, but there are some really functional uses for this. And I wrote an article one time called The Wood Chipper of Love. The idea behind it was that people would do all of these things in the external world to imagine or to try to create situations in which they would fall into love like you might fall into a wood chipper.
Okay.
It was a Valentine's Day article. But the idea behind this was that falling into love is not an accident. You know, we have these movies about how accidental it is and blah 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 blah. But really, if you really want to cultivate a love relationship, if you really want to attract a love relationship, you don't go to all of these things hoping that love happens. You actually come into the emotion, the energy of being in love, and not like in love, like romantic love, but being love, being in love, about running
Mm-hmm.
all of the energies of what love is, so that you begin to attract something or somebody that vibrates that for you. And the nice thing about it is you can play around, right? You can watch a bunch of romance movies if you want to, but you can play around with what actually within the whole paradigm of love, and particularly in this particular sense, romantic love, like what really feels good for you, what doesn't feel good to you, what really pushes what's possible for you, and see if you can play in some of those energies so that you can hone the kind of energy that you would choose to have in your life as an adventurous experience, which is not the same necessarily this kind of love we would want for our long-term romantic partner. But you know, you can choose the flavors that you want to experience, and you can begin to draw in those experiences so you can have them not just in your inner world but in your outer world as well. But you can play around so that love isn't an accident. It's actually something like, this actually feels nourishing to me, this feels supportive of me, this feels like it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's helping me show up in a greater way for myself. So you can begin to cultivate what you want to experience in a love relationship based on practicing those energies as energies, and being in that soul perspective, to come back to that, where there's not a value judgment on that. And if you find yourself in a value judgment, I mean, that's the human experience coming through, and you can look at that and work with
Mm-hmm.
that and say, do I have beliefs or blocks or this kind of things, or what feels
Right.
threatening here, and why does it feel threatening? And if it feels threatening, you know, experiencing it and cultivating the energy of it so that you can either diffuse the threat, or you can say, okay, yeah, I've been there, done that, really still don't want to choose that as part of my life. Or it can be like, you
Yeah.
know, that feels kind of thrilling, I think I'd like to experience a little bit more of that in a way that's not, you know, threatening to my physical survival. So I mean, to me, all of life is energy, and you create your world from the energy that you perceive and project at the same time. And so to practice what you want to perceive, I find helpful.
That's a really cool way to explore possibilities
Yeah.
and to kind of decide before you go jumping into it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge thing before you go jumping into it, because you don't want to be 6 months into a relationship and boom, it all blows up, because now you've had the experience. You're going, oh, or maybe some people do. I don't know. But for me, it's serial monogamist here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
a big fan of it's other people just, or they operate differently and there's no judgment. I would rather play with the energies beforehand, and then who fits that, in a romantic sense, who would fit that. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I don't get to play with that right now. I am still married. I am a
Right.
married
Yeah.
woman. So, but I mean, even at that, even within those bounds, we can still explore those energies and bring them in if they're not already existing.
Well, and you can also explore energies and enter into an energy without acting on it, which is one another reason it comes back
Exactly.
to the movies or to books that you listen to or read.
Yes.
You know, that we do these things so that we can experience different things. And
Hmm.
I know that some people are think this is a horrible thing to do, but for me personally, I think if you're experiencing something through a story that's evoking energies and ideas and things, to be able to fully explore those as energies, but you know, not act on them if they're inappropriate for your life situation.
Right.
um, but it helps you to expand who you are, and helps you to expand from that soul perspective, because you're allowing more things in your life and
Mm-hmm.
you're diffusing the rightness and wrongness of things. The art of practice is really helpful, because sometimes people think if they have an experience that it's the energy of the experience is wanting them to go out and act on that, like that you have to act on that particular energy or that particular experience. And I don't think so. I mean, to me, I think you can have 3 lifetimes worth of experiences on a plane ride between New York and LA. And then it saves you like 15 years and of running around and doing stuff that you don't
Right.
necessarily need to do in the physical world, but you can kind of work through those in experiences and energies without having to go through the drama of the physical world. And then you get to explore, like, what really like makes me feel good, and I enjoy doing in the inner world, that I'm not gonna go rob a bank. But boy,
Right.
it's really fun to play with those energies in the inner world. But I don't need to go rob a bank, because of everything that's involved in that. It's just not something that I want to experience in the physical.
Right.
But
Exactly.
the juiciness of it on an energy level, it opens up other kinds of circuitry to allow you
Mm-hmm.
to notice what else is possible that I've not allowed myself to do. And so I find great value in that. And I know, we started this with the soul energy. So for me, the whole idea of the soul as an adventurer, which has been my experience of it, like one of the ways I can kind of calm that experience in the physical world is to allow a lot of that experience in the energy world. So then my life is, fairly sedate, in the sense that I'm not running around, doing super adventurous things all the time. But I can provide a lot of adventure in the other way, because your subconscious mind, your inner mind, does not know the difference between fantasy or imagination and reality.
Right.
So you can have a lot of those adventurous experiences and provide a lot of that soul level experience without having to disrupt, your physical life overly much.
That's excellent. That's a really good way of putting it. So yeah, that's because that's what I was starting to. It's like I'm feeling into this and going, okay, there's also this concept of we're here to have experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't the experience through the doing? And it's like if we can kind of play with it in the non-physical first and feel the energies, is that something we would want to further embody? If we want to further
Yes.
embody it, then we go and actually take action and
Yeah.
live it, which is different, in
And
my opinion.
yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think the idea of being the adventurer in the inner world, and of really playing with the edginess of your own energy system,
Mm-hmm.
is that what we're moving toward is a time where we're actually living in the presence of that present moment, and the
Mm-hmm.
unfolding of that presence in uncertainty. We're actually there, but we're moving more and more there all the time. But practicing being at the edge of your own energetic experience helps you prepare for actually doing that as your real life daily experience, because we're so conditioned to operate from safety, from taking our
Right.
cues, what's happening outside of us, for all of these different things. And we operate from the mind, we operate from the nervous system, and that kind of stuff. But when you're operating from that, of being in uncertainty and being in the unknown and letting life flow through you,
Mm-hmm.
that is very, very intense energy. And so, in order to be comfortable in that intensity, practicing without having to, live those things in the world, is a way to gear up your body and your nervous system and your life for being able to operate at that level in the physical, in the moment, as you are being invited through a process. And I think that's where we're moving toward. We've all probably had experiences where we've been in that, and we've reacted in different ways. But I think that's becoming more and more of our experience, to live on that very edge of exhilaration and creation. And so practicing uncomfortable energies is good, because being in uncertainty is inherently uncomfortable, and
No,
being
this
able
is
to
true.
operate being able to operate from that discomfort in your full power, and with that full guidance and moving with life as it's moving through you, is an expression that we really need to work up to, because we're just so non-conditioned to be there.
This is true. This is very true. And that's a different kind of getting comfortable with the discomfort than being comfortable with the discomfort of staying where we are. It's like,
Yes.
because that was one thing I actually had worked on earlier on in my journey, was that I can be comfortable in discomfort. Don't do that. Please, please, please do not do that. Don't, because it can keep you where you are and in the discomfort of where you are. And so if you want to be more willing to move forward in knowing that it's going to be just discomfort in growth,
Yeah.
forward movement, then it's the matter of, I know I can move through this discomfort as I grow. So that distinction it's major, because no matter what we do moving forward into the unknown, there's going to be some discomfort. It doesn't necessarily have to be pain or fear, but there's something that will feel a little uncomfortable. So like for somebody who is super contrast oriented, the closer they get to a goal, the more congruent they're becoming with that energy. Well, that's uncomfortable for them because they're wired to be in contrast. And, for somebody who's similar, it's like that the idea of the discomfort will come from, okay, so you want to have this massive house, this big, beautiful beach house. So you go rent one just for the week or the weekend or whatever. But when you're there, chances are good it's going to be a bit uncomfortable because it's dissimilar to where you are currently. And so it's those kinds of discomforts that we need to be able to move through. And there's going to be discomfort.
And to bring it back to the idea of sovereignty, and then we can close this up, but the idea of becoming sovereign is that, and to me, the experience of being fully present in your energy and that energy of wholeness and connected with your soul energy, and totally operating within your own authority as you move forward, which is inherently uncomfortable, because when you're operating on that forward edge of your experience, you're always moving into things that are new, and you are creating things that are fresh for you, which is always, creation can be exhilarating, but exhilarating is not necessarily a really comfortable emotion a lot of the time. So some practice with the emotion and the physical body, because our physical bodies get used to running the same biochemistry, the same emotions, the same. We talked about receptors last time, about cultivating receptors for the things that are what we experience on a regular basis. But we're moving toward having a whole different set of experiences and creating in a whole different way, which does require, to me, cultivating those energies like on our edge, at the edge of our comfort. So at the end, and it can be any level of that comfort, like you don't have to do the bank robbery thing, but so for you, like what's as much love as you're comfortable experiencing, what is it like if you step further into that, to allow yourself to become more vulnerable and come into a greater sense of love? What does more compassion feel like? What does more adventure feel like? What does breaking rules, which is great, feel like? And you don't have to break them, but you can, maybe, depending on the rule. But what does it feel like? Allow yourself to cultivate. What does it feel like to find a rule that you live under and just break it? Do something completely different, and it blows open possibility in your life and in your energy. And the more you're able to experience the full range of energy, the more you can be in that state of wholeness where you can experience everything without having to shut anything down as being too uncomfortable, or the rightness and wrongness of things that we've come to embody.
Very well said.
Oof. All right.
Yeah, very
That
well
was a
said. Thank
different
you.
place. Yeah, it was a different place than we were actually going to take this conversation, I think.
But that's okay. And one of the other points I would like to make about
Yeah.
the concept of being sovereign is
Mm-hmm.
that there's greater choice and less victimization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I think when we are truly, fully, 100% sovereign in every aspect of our beingness, including our physical body, there's no victimization and we are completely at choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a spectrum, because we have some level of choice right now. That doesn't mean that we are feeling or behaving as being completely sovereign, answering to absolutely no one under only our own authority. I think we are genuinely under our own authority no matter what, but we have perceptions that would say otherwise. And at times it would make sense. So, but even at that, when we're fully sovereign, I believe that we have this choice of what to agree with and what to disagree with, and how we actually act that out.
Yeah, and I think one of the thing about the idea of how you just described sovereign is that oftentimes, because of how we're trained, if we think that we are only accountable to us, and we operate from our own authority, that we're going to go run around and railroad everybody else. But part of being sovereign when you are in your own authority is respecting everybody else is also in their own authority. And
Yes.
that when you are in your own freedom, that you give everybody else their own freedom, and to do and be what they choose to be. And there's an embodiment of freedom and authority without the
Mm-hmm.
infringement upon other people's autonomy, freedom, and authority. And that's a whole different way of organizing how you live. And it's really a
Yeah.
bottom up way of doing this, so that
Mm-hmm.
we become into a place of mutual self-respect and mutual allowing and freedom. So that me
Right.
having my freedom doesn't mean I need to shut down your freedom because what you're
Exactly.
doing doesn't look like freedom to me. Like that's the old way of doing things. And this new way
Exactly.
is really being in this greater sense of freedom, but also the discomfort of allowing other people to express their own autonomy and freedom how they would choose to. And learning how to do
Mm-hmm.
this in a way that is mutually respectful, mutually thriving, mutually loving. And that's the adventure that we're really going on, I think,
I agree.
or at least in part. I think it should be fun. I think we should all
I
strap
agree.
in, because it's
Well,
going to be a
and
wild ride.
one of the major things, and I know that this can be hard to hear and kind of hard to wrap your head around. It took me a while, I don't know, 10 years ago when I first started to get this concept. It's like it landed as truth for me right away. But it's this idea of being in wholeness. If we are in
Mm-hmm.
wholeness, if we are all interconnected, if if I limit your freedoms,
Mm-hmm.
I'm limiting my own.
Yep.
If we look at it that way, and that this is aside from like genuine harm being done, but on average, when we're dealing with something of, if each individual has their own full autonomy, which most of us are
Mm-hmm.
not operating fully in our own autonomy, and many aren't
No.
operating in their own autonomy at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so making space for that, and speaking from a place of more of I guess more of an idealized concept a little bit, would be, if we are all truly in our own sovereignty and in harmony with one another, there's a key piece, that we're all in harmony with
Mm-hmm.
one another, then we're not taking freedoms from one another. We're not infringing on one another. I can watch you do your thing with whatever is going on and understand that all the souls involved with that are somehow willing participants from the soul level, and being able to not feel the judgment on it, and yet also being able to step forward in compassion
Mm-hmm.
to be supportive where that is appropriate. And so it's like, it seems like that's kind of this convoluted thing, but at the same time it's quite simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will require that we have some agreements that we all agree to,
Yes,
that of
yes.
non-harming. we have
Yeah.
agreements of non-harming. We have kind of a larger, it's like when children are small, and there's a lot of different levels of what autonomy that are allowed to children. Like right now, like kids in the United States with these helicopter parents and stuff have almost zero autonomy. But in Papua New Guinea, where I was in the Peace Corps, they let kids play with knives. It's like, well,
Right.
if they cut themselves, they'll learn.
They're gonna learn. That was
I'm
my
like,
dad's way. Well, you'll learn.
yeah, there's this kid running around with a machete bigger than him. I'm like, he's gonna lose his leg. They're like, well, he'll be fine. I'm like, oh my God. So there's we're gonna come into some agreements of what non-harming is, and some agreements
Right.
about how this might look moving forward. It will probably be adaptable as we go forward, and we might adapt to them in different ways, and that's all gonna be fine. It's part of the adventure. But yeah, when you don't require that other people reflect back to you your own belief system or your own understanding of what is, in order for you to feel good.
If anybody is interested in connecting with me after this conversation, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through awakentheinnerlight.com. And really I really make that space. And it took me a while to get here, but that space of non-judgment is really important for us all to be able to step forward, both individually and collectively. And creating that space of non-judgment for yourself will open this space for you to heal.
All right, and I'm going to add to this, because Katie always comes at this from the soft side of what she does. But I will also say that she's extraordinarily insightful and able to see kind of the bullshit in the story and be able to reflect that to you so that you can dismantle it in a way that sets you free. So I will add that to her, because she would never say that about herself. All right. Thank you very much, Katie, for being here. Looking forward to our next conversation, because we really had a good time with this one.
This was great. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.